So therefore God has to be absolutely independent. And second point I think which sir made in this chapter is that okay, so God is God is not superpower, but God is the controller of the superpower. I mean, He is the controller of everything, so powerful. So can like there can be another question. So God is not power. So can nature be called God? Because it is like many people have this concept that nature is God. So because nature is providing us everything, all our needs are being fulfilled from the nature, all the raw materials required, etc., are all obtained from nature. So Krishna also forbids this in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sa charachara hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. So he is saying that this material nature itself is one of my energies and it is working under my direction. Mayadhyakshena prakritihi. So under the control of Krishna, the Prakriti is working, and what it is doing, it is producing all moving and non-moving beings. So and also under its rule, the whole creation is under its rule, the manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So therefore nature is also not God. So another important like misconception which is among people is that okay, God is not nature and God is not even power also. So can light be called God? Because God in general is not visible to our like if you limit God by something, then it is God is all pervading. So let us assume that God is some light. So that also Krishna forbids. Like if in the Bhagavatam it is said that, and Bhagavad Gita also, Bhagavad Gita says that Lord has a form, and also that form is the resting place for the light. That light with is it audible? Okay, so I think these are the few primary points which I want to emphasize before I start this new discussion. So any of you feel something point is missing, you can just add type in the text box like any like important point is missing or okay. So let us go on. So maybe one of you can read the first paragraph. Is Krishna one of the many Hindu gods? So maybe Chiranjit Prabhu can read the first paragraph. Chiranjit Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Is there any problem? What should I do? Bansal Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Can somebody read the first paragraph in section? Actually, I am not using laptop, so I am not able to present the PDF. I think you must be having the PDF.
Hare Krishna. Can I read?
Yes, please. Raj Prabhu, you can also read it.
In Vedic literature, there exist two different concepts, God and demigod. Lord Krishna is the source of all demigods who assist him in various worldly affairs. There are 33 crores of demigods. Each one of them works under Lord Krishna's direction. Thus, our readers must abandon the idea that Lord Krishna is also one of the many demigods. Intuitively, one can say that the absolute truth is one. Who among the many Hindu gods can conform to this idea of absolute truth? Readers, if they use their common sense, can find this out easily. आगे आगे
ये नहीं यहीं पे हम थोड़ा डिस्कस करते हैं, then we'll go forward. So therefore, like what we get from this particular paragraph, maybe Raj Prabhu can share something, then I will like summarize the thing. Raj Prabhu, you can tell what key points you must have got from this only this paragraph.
हाँ, हम मतलब सभी को एक ही कैटेगरी में ले लेते हैं, मतलब हर भगवान को एक ही कैटेगरी में दे देते हैं, लेकिन बहुत सारे 33 करोड़ हैं, सभी एक कैटेगरी में नहीं है. इसमें ये बताइए कि लॉर्ड कृष्णा अलग है उन सभी से सुपीरियर है, मतलब उनको भी एक कैटेगरी में ना लिया जाए. वो गॉड हैं तो और सभी डेमी गॉड है, ये बताइए.
हाँ,
और सभी डेमी गॉड उनके डायरेक्शन पे काम करते हैं, वो उनका जो ऑर्डर होता है वही फॉलो करते हैं.
हाँ, मतलब एक मेन पॉइंट ये था कि गॉड एक ही हो सकते हैं और जो सारे हैं, जो देवताएं हैं वो बहुत सारे हैं. सो कैन एनीबडी टेल वन वर्स फ्रॉम भगवद गीता वेयर आई थिंक देयर आर 2 verses. More are there, but means I am focusing on 2 verses where Krishna says that he is the supreme truth. Just you can type in the chat box. I think you memorized that verse also recently. Krishna says there is nothing superior to him, nothing is superior truth than him. Can you just remember? Yeah, here Krishna says he is source of material and spiritual words. Yeah, this can also be one verse, but I was pointing to one verse where Krishna says he is the supreme truth. There is nothing superior to Krishna. So, any guess? Any guess? Archit Prabhu is not there today. Archit Prabhu usually answers immediately. Yes? Yes, Prabhu, any guess? So, okay, I will tell it. Somebody has typed in. Okay, so the verse is Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Idam Prodam Sutre Mani Ganaiva. So Krishna says there is no truth superior to him. Okay, and he says just like the pearls are strung on a string. What is this exactly? So, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So, Krishna is the source of everything as well as he is the supreme truth. So, this is what we understand from this verse. There is another verse, if you just remember. There is another verse. maybe I'm being very pointed, but maybe it is very difficult to get. Okay, I'll just tell it. Name vidu suragana prabhavam na maharshaya. So aham adirhi devanam. I'll just type in here. So the first verse is 7.7 and the second verse is 10.2. So you can just look at it, look at the translation. So you can look at the translation. Neither celestial gods nor the demigods know my origin. I am the source from which the gods and the great seers come. So Krishna is saying that he is not only the supreme truth. He already confirmed in 7th chapter that he is the supreme truth. Now he is elaborating on that nobody can understand Krishna, nor the demigods, nor the great sages, and also they do not know his origin also. So, but he is the source from which all the demigods and great seers of truth, the sages, etc. come. So Krishna is confirming it many times in Bhagavad Gita that he is the absolute truth. And also, so just to give one example, I am all basing my realizations on Sir's lectures. Just like if we in our own life, if you look at like our own country, we have only one prime minister and many different ministers. So, but we don't have many prime ministers just in one country. So similarly, in God's creation, there is one supreme person, that is the absolute truth, and there are many other devatas who are devtaganas who are monitoring under his guidance. So but let us try to understand this concept of God and demigod from a Shastric perspective. So what is the role of demigods within our life? So we see many people are going to demigods for asking boons and different facilities, or different. They want so many things in their life which they want to acquire from worshipping demigods. So, but we are all getting these facilities based on the kind of karma we are doing. Okay, and these demigods are nothing but they are just witness of our actions. They cannot they are like they will either give you something or they will punish you. So they are not they don't give you mercy. So this is another example which you get from this normal mundane world. You see that the judge, if you look at judge, so either gives you punishment or gives you some gives you he doesn't punish you. Okay, so he only blesses you or curses you. So basically he only judges, means he's just a witness. So but they only give you justice, but they don't give you mercy. So this mercy part, which we all need actually, or because we are all in this world where it's a jail, it's kind of jail described as darga or jail. So we all need a mercy. Okay, and the mercy in the mundane world is given by the president of the country. Similarly, we living in this world, all of us agree, most of us I think agree till now, that we have committed so many sins from time immemorial. I mean to say, like, so many bodies we have gone through, 8,400,000 different bodies, and finally we have come to this human form of life, which is so very difficult to attain. So this is not very easy to get rid of our sins, and we need to more and more mercy. So but the demigods cannot give you that mercy. Only thing, they can either reward you or punish you according to your karma or according to your mode of worship to them. So but Krishna is someone who can only give you mercy. He is the only one who can give you mercy. He is the absolute truth. So in this respect, I can share you one more story. Like, I think it's becoming late, so we need to read more. I'll share it later. Okay, so you can start. Another person, maybe Dhananjay Prabhu, can read the next paragraph. Once a German young man. Or anyone can read, like whoever is available. Raj Prabhu only can read, no problem.
प्रभु जी मैं पढ़ दूं?
हाँ पढ़ लीजिए.
Once a German young man started on a world tour to find out who is God. He argued that God must be there in some culture in a proper description as implied in the notion of the absolute truth. He just had to find out. When he was told that Atlas is God, he was not convinced. He thought, how is that the God has how is God how is how is that the God has to put so much efforts to just to lift the Earth planet? To him, Atlas as as a beard old man does not look like a right candidate to be the God. After searching west, he headed for India. When Lord Shiva was presented as a god to him, he was again not convinced. His argument was that how can God be in meditation posture always? God must be he who is objected who is the object of meditation for Lord Shiva. Finally, he arrived in Vrindavan, and here he saw Lord Krishna is always in different enjoying spirit. Somewhere he's dancing with the damsels of Vrindavan. In another place he's playing with his cowherd friends while gazing the cows. When Lord Krishna was presented as God, he finally got convinced. Seeing the Krishna always playing on his flute, the German young man thought Krishna is surely the absolute truth, since he is smiling and enjoying. After all, the gods must be sustaining everything effortlessly, while he himself must be in the most joyous mode among his associates. That is Lord
Krishna.
Krishna. Uh, if a German can understand this so easily, our readers should be able to appreciate better as we present Krishna as he is.
Nice,
So,
thank you. So all of you know Atlas. Who is Atlas? uh, uh, so actually I didn't know before. So actually Atlas is a mythological character in Greek uh, Greek literature. So where he is a bearded old candidate, he keeps holding the Earth planet. So he's a celestial god who keeps holding the Earth planet, and he looks very he has a beard, and he's putting up so much of it looks like very tired person, and he's fatigued, and he's holding planet Earth on his on his arm. So looking at that posture, one can see that such person cannot be God, because he's so much of tired to just lift Earth. So therefore the German person could not accept him as God. So then he went to he realized that actually he has a realization that many different cultures have their own God, and at least they have some conception or notion of God. So there must be some God who is in one form or other in different cultures. There must be a same God, but who is in different form in different cultures. So that made him go to India. So he came across Lord Shiva. So he saw that Lord Shiva actually is a person who is residing in in a very abominable places, and but he's always in a meditative posture on someone. So that made him realize, oh, why, if he is God, why he is meditating on someone else? He must be self sufficient, or he must be self he doesn't have to depend on someone, or he doesn't have to meditate on someone. He is happy within himself. So therefore he thought that, okay, Lord Shiva is not God. So then he went ahead, and so finally he came to Vrindavan, and then he realized that okay, there is one person, Krishna. He is rearing cows, and he's always enjoying with his cowhead boys. He's every day eating makhan and stealing, and he's blissful, totally blissful, as if nothing is happening. So but his enjoyment is so joyful, and he's looking so transcendental that he could understand that this person is God. So this is a story, like a very educating story, which gives us some idea that Krishna is not someone who is sectarian, means only not that some community worships him as God, or it's intended to worship him as God by a small community. No, it's not like that. Krishna means someone who is always attracting everyone, and he's the absolute truth. So the God who is the absolute truth, his original name is Krishna. So Krishna, what does Krishna mean? So that we will read through in the next paragraph. So here, any arguments or any comments you can just type in. I think this paragraph, what sir wants to convey is what I think I have summarized. Anything else you can just question or something you can just type in this, as far as this paragraph is concerned. I think but it is covered, most of it. So maybe Dheeraj Prabhu can read next.
One of the meaning of the Krishna is all attractive. The word Krish is dhatu, root, sabda, and the meaning is to attract. Krishna means he who attracts everyone. Sarva Krishna, all attract him. So Krishna is nothing.
Sarva Karshaka it is.
Sarva Karshika. So Krishna is not something sectarian. Krishna refers to God. God's original name is Krishna. He has unlimited names: Rama, Allah, Jehovah, Vishnu, Narayana, Jehovah, Vishnu, Narayana, Padman, Nabha, Ananta, Keshava, Mukunda are some of his other names. As such, he has unlimited names. This implies that Krishna is neither another demigod nor he is god of a particular class of people. This can be further understood by the following simple humorous story, further understood by a following simple son Indian or American. Once there was two drunkards who were fighting among themselves. One of the drunkards who loved everything American was arguing that sun was originally from America. The other insisted furiously that the sun was always an Indian and will continue to do so. When their argument got highly animated, they decided to ask the opinion of a passerby who happened to be a foolish simply stone. When posed with the question whether the sun was Indian or American, the foolish person replied, I happen to be new in this part of the country, so I am not sure if your son belongs to Indian or American. Similarly, labeling Krishna as Hindu or Indian reflects very narrow thinking and is baseless idea.
Okay. Yeah. So in this paragraph, the paragraph above the picture where Krishna's various forms are shown. So in this paragraph, we see a very important concept, that God's original name is Krishna. And what does Krishna mean? All attractive. So God should be all attractive. So therefore his original name is all attractive. But there is another catch here, that God also has unlimited names. Okay, so is a very nice logical statement here that God has unlimited names: Rama, Allah, Jehovah, Vishnu, Narayana, Padmanabha, Ananta, Keshava, and Mukunda. Why is God known as Keshava? Any guess? Somebody can type in there. Why is Lord known as Keshava? You can type in the chat box. What is Dhananjay Prabhu is asking a question? I've missed it, sorry. Why is Lord Rama dependent on others? Lord Rama is dependent on others. Could you elaborate? Like, so Krishna and Rama are the same person, right? So the God is not dependent on anyone, right? So I just couldn't follow. Yes, okay, Prabhu. That's okay, fine. So what is the meaning of Keshava? You can just type in Keshava. Why is Lord called Keshava? Is it a difficult question? Maybe should I only answer? Archit Prabhu would have answered if he would have been here. Okay, Lord killed the Keshi demon, so therefore he is called Keshava. And why is Lord called Mukunda? Any just okay, Dhananjay Prabhu is further supporting his claim that Lord Ram is dependent on someone, that during his venture to find Mother Sita, he was depending on Sugriva. Okay, so actually these are we should this is something like this is a Leela actually. So Lord is in Lord's pastime, everybody wants to take part. It is not that without someone Lord cannot perform the Leela. So it is the desire of demigods that they participate in Leela, taking different opportunity to serve the Lord. It is not that Lord needs someone that to enact the Leela. So if Lord is not that Lord is dependent, it's the desire of the devotee or the desire of the person who is participating in the Leela to serve the Lord. So that is the inherent natural characteristic of the person who wants to serve. It is not that the master is dependent on the servant. This is something which we have to understand. So yeah, I think this is the main idea, that Lord is not dependent on Sugriva, but Sugriva is the natural desire of Sugriva to serve the Lord in this Leela. So that's how this Leela happened. So I think it should answer the question. Maybe you can okay, no problem. So I just want to end the class with on a very lighter note. So I just want to share one small Leela, like two Leelas maybe. So so all of you heard of Dhruv Maharaj pastime? Dhruv Maharaj Leela, like who was Dhruva, and any of you like heard of it? Okay, so Dhruva. So we hear from Bhagavatam that Dhruv Maharaj was rejected by his father when he wants to sit on the lap of his father. So because his he was not the son of the wife who is dear to Lord the king, so therefore he rejected his son from sitting on his lap. So that it was this made Dhruva very angry that he went to his mother Suniti. His mother's name is Suniti. So he went to his mother and uh, he was confiding to her that he was very upset with his father. So then Suniti, she was also upset. So in the same angry mood, she was telling that uh, you have to, if you want any desire to be fulfilled, or you have to go to Lord Vishnu. You have to go to Lord Vishnu and try to please him. So she was telling to him very strongly that he has to go to Lord Vishnu and please him. So we see that from this pastime that Dhruva goes to Lord Vishnu, that he wants just Dhananjay Prabhu can ask maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, maybe, because I'll complete this pastime, then you can take the questions. Is it fine? Dhananjay Prabhu? Okay, fine. So here Dhruva Maharaj goes to acquire a kingdom which is bigger than his father's kingdom, and for this he goes to forest and performs tapasya for 6 months. Then Lord Vishnu appears to him after 6 months of tough austerity, and once Lord Vishnu appears, it is said that Dhruva Maharaj forgets all his desires. Means his desire to acquire a kingdom seemed to be very, very, very insignificant. The kind of happiness he derived when Lord appears within his heart and shows him off. So then Dhruva Maharaj forgot his desire to achieve the biggest kingdom on earth. So Lord Vishnu, however, fulfilled his desire, that he gave him a nakshatra, the pole star, the kingdom, to that where Dhruva is the presiding deity. So Lord Vishnu gave him all that, but after that also Dhruva became a very nice devotee of Lord Vishnu. So this is something which is very educating, that if you worship Lord Vishnu, that all your desires are purified, as well as at the end you acquire mercy of Lord Vishnu. Okay, so same example I just like to give example of another asura who was in Bhagavatam. We hear of an asura. His name is Baka. Actually his name is Baka. So later he gets one more name. I will tell after this Leela. So Baka was going to Narada and asks him, "O Narada Muni, I hear that Vishnu, who should I approach that I can fulfill my desires very quickly?" So Narada says, "See, Baka, if you approach Vishnu, he will fulfill your desire, but there is a cost you have to pay. So, but if you approach demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Lord Mother Durga, so all your desires will be instantly fulfilled." So before Narada could complete the statement, the Baka went and he started performing his tapasya to Lord Shiva. So after the 7th day, the Lord Shiva appeared, and immediately he asked him. Lord Shiva appeared together with Parvati, and he asked, "What does Baka want?" But this person Baka, actually he sacrificed all his body parts in the sacrificial fire, starting with his legs, then his thighs, then his belly. So he was doing so much of horrified things that Lord Shiva was immediately horrified, and he immediately came to bless this person, or at least stop him from doing such heinous acts. So then he was intelligent, but he was of demoniac intelligence. So he looked at Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati. So he told, with a bad intention, he wanted Mother Parvati. So he told Shiva that on whoever head I put my hand, he should be burned off. So that's what he asked the boon from Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva then said him Tathastu, and then Lord Shiva was about to go. Then he told, "I want to check once." So then he started placing his hand on Lord Shiva's head itself. So then Lord Shiva was he started running from that place. Then he approached Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu was there as a Brahman, young Brahman, 6 to 10-year-old Brahman, and he was smiling. So Lord Shiva approached him, and then Vishnu came as this Brahman, and he stood in the path between the Bhasmasura. He is now called Bhasmasura. because he had got a new boon to destroy anyone by putting his hand on his head. So Bhasmasura, he approached Bhasmasura and told him, "Oh Bhasmasura," and he was laughing at him. So then Bhasmasura was surprised, why this guy is not feared by me, why he is laughing. So then Bhasmasura told, the Brahman told Bhasmasura, Lord Shiva resides somewhere in Smashan Ghat somewhere, and he doesn't even take bath. So how do you believe in his words that he gave you such a big boon? So then Bhasmasura thinks again. Oh, okay. So then he says, just check it once. I really don't think he has given you any boon. He's not at all qualified person. So then he puts his hand on his head and he just burns away. So we see that from this example that actually the two contrasting examples, one is Lord Shiva and the other is Vishnu. So Lord Shiva was giving the boon, but he was not giving the mercy or the purification. So Lord Shiva was giving the mercy, but he was not giving the purification. Okay. So, but the mercy was sorry, I think I misplaced the sentence. Lord Shiva gave the boon, but there is no purification. But Lord Vishnu gives the boon, but along with it a lot of purification and mercy. Okay, which corrects the conditioned soul. So this is one important point we have to take away from this Leela. And there is one more pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Abhishek Bansal Prabhu, can I speak for 2 minutes? I think it is exceeded the time, but maybe I'll just speak
yes, Prabhu, speak.
Okay. So in one Leela where Prabhupada narrates this, actually there is a king and he has a big kingdom. So a sadhu arrives in his kingdom. So the sadhu comes to the king and blesses his son. So what does he bless his son? Rajuputra Chiranjiva. So he says that you are he blesses the king's son with his Sanskrit words, Rajuputra Chiranjiva. So then there is a sage there sitting there in his sabha, and he has his son sitting beside. So to the sage son he blesses Muniputra na jivova. So this is one statement he tells to the person, and then he sees a Vaishnava's son sitting there. He was a devotee, so he blesses him Jivova Marova. So please remember these three statements. The first statement is Rajuputra Chiranjiva. The second statement is Muniputra na Jivova. And the third statement is Jivova Marova. So how do we understand this? So why did he say the king's son, you Chiranjeev, means you live for a long time? So can anyone elaborate? And why did he tell the son of the sage that don't leave, you don't have to leave? And he's saying the Vaishnava, it doesn't matter whether you leave or don't leave. So it's a very nice understanding which we get from this three important statements. Actually the king's son is living very lavishly, and he has already committed a lot of sin in his life, and he wants to commit more. And because of the sins he has committed, he would definitely have to take birth in this world again and again. So the sage indeed gave him told him this statement that you live for a long time, commit more sins, because again you have to take for a long time in the material world. And for the sage's son, so the sage's son is living in the ashram under very austere conditions and rendering so much of service. He sleeps in the night after his the father is asleep, and does a lot of service. He goes to the forest early in the morning and gets a lot of sticks to cook for his father and do sacrifices. He makes a lot of arrangements, but in the night he sleeps only after his guru has slept. So he has done a lot of so much of service in this birth that once he leaves his body he will immediately get liberation. So basically he doesn't, because in this life already he is living he's already performed a lot of austerities and the life is tough. So therefore he told him, okay, you immediately get liberation, leave this. And he's saying the Vaishnava, what comes to a devotee, even if the devotee is living or dead, he is always blissful in Krishna consciousness. If he's alive, he is happy serving someone, serving Krishna's devotees, practicing devotional life, reading Bhagavad Gita, enjoying Krishna Prasadam. So he's always happy in doing sadhana for Krishna, pleasing Guru. But even if after he's dead, again he is not worried if I am dead or not. He's not worried his next destination, because of his Krishna consciousness he obviously get a destination which is again making him to be Krishna conscious. So therefore he is not worried. So he is blissful in this life or next life. So this is one important thing, that a Vaishnava, by worshipping Lord Vishnu, he is always happy in this world as well as in the next world. Whereas if you worship a demigod, only temporary happiness will be attained, but there is no purification. This is the statement made in Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Dhruva Maharaj pastime. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can just put me to. I'm not good at answering questions, but I can just try. So Dhananjay Prabhu is asking difficult questions again. So, are the Pandits of Jagannath temple foolish as they don't allow foreigners? Okay. So I'll just share one. I asked the same question to sir, and some years before even many devotees asked the same question. So I'll just share the same answer from those. Some statements from those answers. So you heard of Haridas Thakur in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. So Haridas Thakur was a very elevated devotee. He was chanting 192 rounds daily, and he was born from a Muslim family. So but still, even such a person who was so qualified, he never entered Jagannath temple. He took a small quarter, miles away from, not miles, some 200 meters away from the temple, and Lord Chaitanya, God himself, used to come every day to get some prasad for him. So I don't like to comment on the Pandits of Jagannath temple, because I don't know, you cannot comment on them. But still, what I would like to say is, yeah, even if Lord Jagannath temple doesn't allow foreigners, the flag, there is a Sudarshan, and there is a flag on top of the temple, which is almost equivalent if you are taking darshan of the Lord Jagannath. So there was a pastime. I think there is not much time right now to tell about this. That even if you take a darshan of that, I forgot the name of that Lord Jagannath. It's equivalent to taking Lord Jagannath darshan, the flag on top of the temple. Sudarshan, yeah, Sudarshan, and so Sudarshan. If you are taking darshan of Sudarshan, it is almost same as taking darshan of Lord Jagannath. There is a pastime of a king of Orissa who was married a Muslim woman, and then he was forbidden for taking darshan. For him, Lord himself manifested on as a Sudarshan on top of the temple. So it is, although Pandas don't allow foreigners, but still it is the same if you are taking darshan from outside the top of the Sudarshan. So yeah. So, and also we should aspire to become devotee like Haridas Thakur. That even Haridas Thakur accepted that. Even Dhananjay Prabhu was saying that we used to bow down as we see the chakra. Yes, actually the chakra is the same as Lord Jagannath, manifested deity, and the same deity manifested to the people who are not allowed to take darshan inside the temple. So it's the same. Yeah. So instead we should aspire to become like Haridas Thakur, who even Haridas Thakur followed that custom of the temple, that you should not go inside who is not a person who is not born in a reputed Hindu family. So even if Haridas Thakur is accepting, I don't think we should. We don't have. Yeah. I think it's cleared, or somewhere if something is left, you can ask Vipul sir. Maybe sir will answer better. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Please, Dheeraj Prabhu can add. maybe some. Yeah, yeah, it's a Dheeraj Prabhu is saying that they do the pandit. I mean, the pandas do that because of love for Jagannath. Yeah, maybe, yeah, but maybe Dheeraj Prabhu can elaborate like one more sentence he can add just so that uh, we can better appreciate.
प्रभु जी तो मतलब मैंने एक वीडियो देखा था तो उन्होंने वो बताया था कि वहाँ पे उन्होंने एक प्रेडिक्शन
Yes, this is Dhananjay Prabhu's very nice, another nice question. He's asking that why did Srila Prabhupada start Radha Yatra? This is a very good question. So this was like sir has also discussed this point many times. Like we see that what is the mood of a preacher? A preacher is someone who always wants to uh, present glories of Krishna all across the world. So in India, we see that before Srila Prabhupada started preaching in the West, the access to Vrindavan was only for very limited people. Only limited people could come to Vrindavan Dham and access Krishna, or the pastimes of Krishna, or even Radha Kund, Shyam Kund, all these places of Krishna's pastimes. But the mood of preacher like Srila Prabhupada is that he will replicate these different dhams in different parts of the world, so that even people who cannot have access to the country India, or even cannot enter or not allowed to enter such holy places, can get benefit of these wonderful holy places of Krishna. The pure devotee manifests them at wherever places he goes. Whichever places he goes, he manifests the holy dham. So Jagannath Ratha Yatra is an attempt in that direction by Srila Prabhupada, where different people in the world can get access to Lord Jagannath Leela, and they can get purified and perfect their life. I think it is. Does it answer, Prabhu? Dhananjay Prabhu?
प्रभु जी मैंने एक
Right. Okay. Any other question, Prabhu? Okay. Thank you for all your questions. Actually, it, improved my understanding, and I would like to thank Bansal Prabhu even for giving me this service. Bansal Prabhu, should I
Yes,
leave now?
yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.